for me, one of the values I really appreciate in people is about being a good loser. I think one of the recurrent ironies of Indian banking system is that if somebody comes for a loan, first of all, see the person with like stare in his eyes with a deep rooted suspicion that this guy is going to default. Really analyze him from toe to top, and really get all the documents and everything, and then say now your loan is approved. Right now, the opportunity for me was there were a large set of people, right, who are either not the mass market salaried people and self-employed. They don't want to be treated like this. They want to be treated in a dignified way. They want an instant loan. And that, I would say, as much as I'm putting it as a myth, it's a big opportunity for me. I have built a business on the back of only this. Their income levels are less than between 20,000 rupee to 1 lakh. So call it a mass market level. Their average CIBIL score is 741. What I understand, for many of the prominent banks, the score is same, or if not same, it is lower. In fact, I'm not talking about the best bank on the street. The big myth which exists is that just because you are catering to mass market segment, you are actually catering to less creditworthy customers. Wholly mythological, flat out, right?
Ranvir Singh is the co-founder and CEO of Kissht, founded in 2015. Kissht is enabling credit for consumers via its network of 3,000 plus offline merchants and 50 plus online stores across India. Join us as Ranvir talks about the evolving credit landscape, how Kissht and Ring, their payments arm, synergize, and insights into being a founder after graduating from some of India's best colleges. Ranvir, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Aviral. Thank you, Mazin. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for inviting me, having me here.
So Ranveer, Coffee with Karan is there for just some time, but our rapid fire is all year long. So we start with a rapid fire. It should be fun.
Sure.
If you could be a professional in any other field unrelated to what you do today, what would it be and why?
Oh, man. I would have loved running a cocktail bar.
Okay.
Uh, and part of it is to do with my not only tolerance with hot water, but also my interest in drinking and with drinks. No, on a more serious level, of course, I would have done that. Uh,
Yeah.
it has always enamored me to meet people, interact more with them, people who are not from the same walks of life. So, and then my own limited spare at least tells me that perhaps a bar is a good place to do, where you can, with the added benefit of having some nice, great cocktail. So that's what I would have done. Perhaps.
Yes. Very different answer than we usually get. Easiest and hardest subjects at IIT Bombay.
Oh, I think easiest was a course in mathematics. I don't know the exact name of that course, but I believe it was also to do with, I was a very, very, call it, uh, not the topper in IIT. So any course which I did well, exceedingly well, that became my easiest and my favorite topic. So mathematics was one of them. Uh, and the toughest one perhaps was also mathematics, which was some abstract mathematics. I
Okay.
remember we had a professor whose name was KD Joshi, and KD among the kids, and I say this with full respect and humility to the professor who has taught me mathematics. KD became Kuni Darinda Joshi. And yeah, and I also remember, I still remember almost the mark sheet is etched in my memory. So the highest guy got 100 out of 100. The second highest was some 98, and I'm talking about a batch of some 400 odd people. And then the third highest was some 21 marks. And there was a whole mass of students between 15 and 20. I was falling somewhere between 15 and 20, and somehow I kind of passed the course because the concept of relative grading was more important than absolute grading. But yeah, that was the toughest one, if you ask me.
And who are those two people who got 198? What
Oh,
are they doing
oh
in life
yeah,
today?
quite interesting. One of the struggles I have this caricature of a person when I talk to my IT team, and I always tell them that, why on earth it will take like 3 weeks, why can't it be done in 1 or 2 days? And the face which comes to my memory is a guy called Vinod Cherian in my batch. What he would do, other than the fact that he was a topper in mathematics and topper in many other courses, if there is a big coding thing, he will just sit We'll make a night out, and almost the most complex of complex codes can be written overnight. And for some reason, that benchmark has not escaped me.
Left.
Yeah, and that always becomes. I said why, and of course, when we were in IIT, we always thought that we ourselves can also do what Cherian was doing, but we are busy with some other interesting pursuits in life, and we never studied. And like anybody who goes in IT and goes through that, but yeah. So one of them is in US. He's a data scientist. Very very. The other guy is actually he did his PhD. I think he's a professor right now in Stanford or Caltech or one such place.
Hopefully not a Khuni Darinda for someone else
No,
paying it forward.
no, definitely. I hope he has not taken the mantle of being a flag bearer of Puni Darinda. But yeah, I hope not.
Nice. That was awesome. Three lessons from your consulting days that stayed with you.
Okay. First of all, lots of lessons, but lots and lots of lessons. I'll just lay out what comes to my mind
But
right
as a
now.
consultant, you have to choose three, as you
Okay.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
That is one of the three lessons.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No, no, absolutely. I get the joke. I think the first one is this whole importance of building relationship.
Hmm.
Many people have this misconception, almost flat out mythological view that consulting is all about giving advice, giving, a business model, etc., etc. Of course, it is about that, but there's a great part about building relationship. And particularly in my case, why I'm saying this is all the things I could build up, I could look forward to after I left McKinsey and I was starting my own company was on the back of relationship that one has built. These are relationship with your peers in within McKinsey, but more importantly your clients, right? These clients who were not only the CEO, CXO level, but also other people. So I think that's one thing which will go a long way. Second, you know, uh, again, it's a very cliche to say that, but I would say this: it's a whole art of problem solving. Now,
Right.
it can mean many things to many people. It's a very amorphous word, needless to say. Problem solving, such a global, overarching, I get that. But I think for me, it was, take any problem, disaggregate into simple items. After having disaggregated, figure out which are the ones you need to focus on, which are the ones you are not be able to focus on. Commit yourself to some hypothesis, as against doing some bottom-up detail analysis. So there is a whole methodical way to get to uh, problem solving, while at the same time giving allowance for your own style, your own comfort of whether you are a hypothesis based versus somebody who is always
Right.
trying to look for examples outside. So I think the problem solving was one thing. This is again something which has almost stayed with me every day, if not every week, as I run the business. I think the third learning which comes to my mind, there was a phrase, rather overtly overused phrase in McKinsey called obligation to dissent, which basically means that you should form your own point of view and claim all the owner's responsibility, bravado, courage, whatever you call it, in defending that point of view, which would mean you don't have to be yes man. You don't have
Hmm.
to even if you are dealing with most senior client or internally, you have to show dissent, an obligation backed by
Right.
rationale and reason, etc., etc. I think again a topic which has gone a long way with me. It's one of those qualities I always look for in people also when I hire, but primarily coming from my consulting days, I would say.
What's your take on profit versus growth, especially for early stage companies?
I think it depends upon many, many factors. And don't get me wrong, I am not vacillating between, I know half the management question have an answer, it depends. But here it truly depends, if you may. Uh, so it's about which sector you are in, what kind of growth path you are looking for. Suppose if you so it can vary from sector to sector if I have to advise, but in my company, I think we're very clear. As much as we are married to growth, almost fanatical about growth and trying to outbeat the market and so on and so forth, we have kept our head over our shoulders. We have been a profitable company, perhaps not from year 2 but from year 3, barring the COVID years. And that comes from a natural from a very simple fact that in a lending business, the unit economics has to be established. It is not a business where you can you know you can keep throwing money create a big network of partners, people who may give you future value. But at the same time, if I was in an e-commerce business, my stance would have been different. I would not chase profit. I would just chase growth, and loyalty and connect and stickiness with the customer. So it's a little bit of that. But if in my business, it's a more scale, and while maintaining profits as we go along.
And the final fun question is actually a little serious. What's one truth few people agree with you on? One thing you really believe in that others don't.
Um, Two things comes to my mind, and let me say both.
Okay.
One, at a more formal organizational level, I'm a strong believer of um, competitive advantage, which
Hmm.
is to say that a company can create value by just focusing on what they should be good at.
Hmm.
All the other things should be either outsourced, or there are whole mass of companies who may do better, outperform you and that. So in my business, it's all about, see, there are two things I'm great at. One is underwriting and customer ownership, being able to create the right product for them as they go along in the lending business. Beyond that, um, a specific technology solution, a very modular, collection architecture, all of that, my bias is always go and partner.
Hmm.
The reason it becomes something which is difficult to communicate, and sometimes there are contrarian view, is because we are moving from a stage of almost a small company to a very very big company, or at least that's the hope aspiration is. That leads to a lot of rearrangement of departments. A department which might be important today may not be important tomorrow, but at the same time, all the energy and focus on core things. So that's one thing where I feel there are instances when one finds it difficult to get a vote of support when it comes to thinking and strategizing it. I think the second thing, which not so much of a disconnect, but maybe it's not a difference in kind, but more a difference in emphasis. For me, one of the values I really appreciate in people is about being a good loser,
Being a good loser. Hmm.
which would mean sometimes just the act of losing for me is almost a step towards triumph or towards a larger goal. Now,
Hmm.
it may give an impression to somebody that one is playing for the sake of losing,
Hmm.
and one is not. I mean, it shows when you are playing a sport, for that matter, more eloquently than otherwise. But even in our business discussions, if you may, that's the other thing which comes to my mind, where I sometimes feel that there is an audience which is outnumbering me uh, in terms of point of view.
Being a good loser is a good one, actually.
Mhm.
And although we've had so many conversations, this answer gives so many different, uh, you know, directions of thinking. It's the first time anyone said it, so it's a good one. I I think it's rare, actually. People don't. The first thing is, I think people don't like to lose, and they also don't like accepting the concept of losing.
Yeah,
Um, and being a good loser is a highly mature individual. It's rare, actually. People who know how to lose and accept it
yeah,
are rare, actually. That's a good one.
yeah.
So
Okay.
Ranvi, talk about your early days. Where did you grow up? Any early influences before you got into IIT Bombay? Were there some ideas you had that you wanted to be a founder, or there was nothing like that? Maybe talk us through that. And there's a world map behind you, so it's a good place to start where you are from.
So I grew up mostly in Mumbai and Vizag.
Okay.
My father was in Indian Navy,
Yeah.
so we went wherever my father was posted. Studied in Kendriya Vidyalaya, which is central school. Uh, uh, Three of them. The last one was at one of the missile bases the naval, this thing had. My native place is near Ayodhya,
Okay.
which is where my father grew up. And I have some fond memories, uh, almost nostalgically sentimental memories of that place, because we would spend our summer vacations there,
Hmm.
mango orchards, and the ancestral land we had, and etc. etc. In the last 2 years, perhaps I've gone there once. My regular regime is maybe I'll go there once in 2 years for a day or two. But in the last 3 months, I've gone there thrice because of the new airport which has come up, and
Wow.
my place is like 40 minutes from there. So that's where I grew up. In terms of the influences, I would say many and many people, almost unaccountably high number of people, and difficult to. In fact, there were so many unsung heroes in your life, and I believe I'm not alone in that sense. Everybody goes through that. I get that. Um, but some of the names which stands out, my my mathematics and biology madam in my 11th 12th standard,
Hmm.
they definitely had a huge influence in just telling me in those days, the singleness or of mind while you are trying to achieve something. Some of those learning go a long way. Similarly, IIT was not so much of a formative years, but perhaps they were formative because you were still getting, influenced by many, many people. A lot of friends, right? A lot of philosopher friends who can put the same thing which you were rather appreciating right now of being a good loser, the same thing, the company of those people. I think those are some of the influences.
Hmm.
While I was in the growing up, I don't think I ever thought I'll start a company.
Hmm.
If anything, the only thing occupying my mind then was to do something which can make me earn money, and perhaps
Okay.
lots of money. Uh, Perhaps lots of money, and yeah, that mercenary instinct was there with me for a very long period before it changed. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm of course putting it in a rather non-serious manner, but yeah, the whole idea of saying I want to be at the right place, which gives me good jump in the career. I mean, those humbug concerns which any graduate would have, I was also suffering from there. As far as starting my company is concerned, I never went through some kind of a epiphany that I interacted with some people and all of a sudden I came across, oh, now I need to solve this problem. None of that. But having said that, no, I'm a person of very, very deep passion and conviction. I did have a belief that there are some things which are broken, which of course didn't happen when I was growing up. It was more a realization when I've seen the business ecosystem, business world, etc., etc., and then the
Hmm.
idea of germinated about creating something which can make a difference.
And I know we like stepped forward a little bit, but why did you decide to go to IIT Bombay, or was it a decision at all? Did you go with the flow? Anything you did there, then you worked for a couple of years, did your MBA. A lot of our listeners are young people and potentially founders, so um, would be great to know your thought process and decision making then.
Yeah, almost, I think everything in that phase of the life, I'm talking about 15, 17, 20 years back, right? When I went to IIT, it was one mostly going with the flow,
Yeah.
but more importantly, and this may be a, adolescent mind and his sensibilities trying to make meaning out of the world.
Hmm.
Early, almost around 9th, 10th standard, I realized perhaps there are some topics I'm good at beyond others, which are more like mathematics, which are more like physics, etc., etc. Had some level of fluency with numbers and all of that. So that was the other gravitational pull which made me say, "Oh, let me go to IIT. The chances
Hmm.
of success are much higher." Um, as far as the IIM is concerned, I around the time when I graduated from IIT, there was a whole proportion of people, the whole preponderance of people to go and go abroad. I mean,
Yeah.
most of my almost 50% of my batchmate went abroad. I was never enamored by that. I always wanted to be in India. Uh, I don't know why. Perhaps if I remember, I don't know. There were some friends who were there. The reasons may look very awkward, but just wanted to be in India.
Hmm.
And while in India, I thought from a career progression standpoint, and it just makes more sense to go and do an MBA, which is where I wrote CAT and got into doing an MBA. So those were the things.
Understand.
And of course, once you went there, then you wanted to be competitive. You wanted to get the best job, and
Correct.
one thing happened after the other, and that's how one being here.
Got it. And then you got into McKinsey. You spent a reasonably long time there compared to, most people who just look at it as a pit stop
Yeah.
for something better. Um,
Mhm.
what did you pick up from there? Did you start thinking about, doing more? You also joined a company called Si-Creva after
Mm.
that.
Yeah. Mm.
So, what was your thought process? What were your experiences like at McKinsey?
Yeah. Yeah. So McKinsey was a very, very sorry to use my
Yeah.
transformative experience, but it was indeed transformative in that sense, um, for many reasons. I think it just made you appreciate the business ecosystem much better. Your ability to see strategy, my the point which I was making about competitive advantage, and not only in one organization. You see organizations after organization, and you see it at a very, very senior level. So you also appreciate the act of sometimes being detached slightly at the higher end and then looking at the organization. So I would say the McKinsey experience was great uh, for two reasons. One, which I mentioned about all the exposure we had, multifunctional, multidimensional, all of that. But I think there was another reason why it was very different, and that is the set of people I interacted with. This was one place. I mean, all my role models, some of the input, feedback I got, many of them are either CEOs of the company, very few are there in the McKinsey, or they are doing some other pursuits, which are again excellent in their own way. But the people made a world of difference. Um, uh, I remember my first EM, Babar Khan, who was there. I mean, the kind of influence he had in my cast, in forming a cast of mind on what needs to be done, went a long, long way. Similarly, some of the other people, well wishers, all of that, and I think that's why a person like me stayed perhaps longer than. And I never went into McKinsey thinking it's a pit shop to spend 2 3 hours and then 2 3 years and then get into some other this thing. I went with the flow, did very well, excelled in almost everything, and then beyond a point, you always have some fatigue and tedium and banality which develops, and we feel,
Right.
oh, now let's look for a second wave. The Si-Creva thing that you are talking about is actually my started company. I started the company. We wanted to, when I say we, me and Krishnan, we left McKinsey together. Krishnan was with me there. In fact, our current business that we are talking about, Kissht Ring, the legal name is Si-Creva Capital, by the way. It's
Oh,
actually
wow.
borrowed from there. So we started that company more as to do analytics and consulting.
Okay.
And that time the analytics team was picking up, etc., etc. But soon we realized that in analytics, the ticket sizes, the revenue that you make is very less.
Right.
And if I can show extreme candor, one of my biggest concern while leaving McKinsey was that at least I should be earning so much what I earned in McKinsey. And I earned a great deal in McKinsey.
Hmm.
And so when we started this company, which was focused on analytics, I realized that it will take 2 3 years before we start matching the salaries of McKinsey level. So we shifted there. We did analytics work, but we were also serving many institutions on strategy and business building, and
Right.
actually created a very strong, thriving practice of 50, 60 consultants. There were
Oh,
instances when we were charging McKinsey fees. There were instances when we were charging perhaps higher, lower. I mean, all kind. And I think one reason why we started our company, which is the Fintech, because we were emboldened with the money that we had earned, and we were not into the typical situation which people face where it becomes more or less like a binary option, right? Either I'll set up something. I mean, we were fairly well placed in that sense.
hmm.
So yeah, that was the thing which made us go there.
Understand. And how did you fix this problem? Like you said that it was not some story book style. You found the pain point and you discovered it, and then you tried to solve it. It seemed like you went with the flow, saw a business problem. You were already doing
Yeah,
consulting and analytics. How
yeah,
did this come up, and how did you end up founding Kissht?
yeah. So a couple of things. I think multitude of factors which made me decide that it was not an easy decision, but it made it easy at one point in time. I remember Krishna and I were flying from Patna to Bombay. We were taking a flight. We both had an aisle seat, so we were not sitting next to each other. There was a gangway, the space in between, and we were only talking about, bitching about the work that we are doing. I mean, fine, we're making good money, and we are doing this and that, etc., etc. But what's the next wave, and what are the next problem we need to solve? Like where one can create a business model. Of course, some of our friends had created big companies, but that time the word unicorn was still not in the lexicon. It took many years before it came. So that was perhaps not the motivation. And while we were discussing about some business model, about financial services, about retail, almost in some vague form, I mean, people were going to the loo, so we had to shortcut our discussion in between, and then when we again get a space and we'll do the conversation like this. But what I remembered from the flight is that when I landed back, we almost landed saying, okay, ये चार चीजें करनी है, हमें पांच छह चीजें. You manage these three four, I'll manage these three four, fine, and let's reconnect again 3 4 days, and then. And I'm being candid when I say that was the beginning or the germination of setting up something. I mean, more underlying reason which made us decide this is, of course, as I said, we were well placed. We were emboldened by presence of money. We had made enough money, and we were in a position to take those this thing. But more importantly, this was also the time when you had all the things changing, right? UPI was coming in. UPI has not blossomed to the level which it has right now. It almost looks like it has always existed. That time it didn't exist then. All this digitization happening, many other initiatives on Aadhaar card and everything was coming through. It almost looked like, oh, the entire deck is getting rearranged, and the otherwise a very highly fragmented jigsaw puzzle financial services look like. It almost looked like if you can create a competitive advantage here, there's a big opportunity, big market to be built there. So things like that. So those were the extraneous factor. It was not one of those like woke up and took a bravado and say, no, now we'll be the flag bearer and will blaze a new trail. None of those. It sounded a very logical opportunity which is there. Of course, the risk of these ecosystem coming together, what time it will take, whether it will fructify by the time you become scale player, etc., etc. But those were some of the thoughts which went in creating, taking the plunge of setting this company.
Awesome. So now walk us through the next steps. So okay, fine. That was your kind of frame of mind. You set out to go about, building this company. How did you create your first product, get your first customer?
Yeah. So we basically the initial product was some ramshackle concoction of whatever you could put together. So,
Okay.
for example, we wanted a technology system to be ready. That was not ready. That was well past any durable date that we had set for ourselves. The initial product that we have done was loan against uh, mobile purchase. And I remember we had partnered with one store which was down the road, and uh, we offered we created this product, and this mobile shop, they basically told us that from the time we started offering this, the sale has increased. So those were some of the initial, call it high point, which became part of our. We didn't have the full team, so different people coming together like anybody, right? It's not that anybody who's trying to set up a thing. But one thing from those days which really still rings in my head is our first customer. He basically was taking a mobile to. Uh, I'm guessing based on the situation that wanted to give this as a gift to somebody, perhaps
Okay.
his girlfriend, and
Got it.
he had put some timeline of by 7 o'clock I want this and this, etc., etc. And his girlfriend problem became the organizational problem because we were all wanting to ensure that the guy delivers at 6 o'clock. This I'm talking about the first customer. 6 o'clock it should reach, and then this, and then one guy said no, he's trying to get a taxi, and then he will deliver it because he has moved there. So some all this chaos which was happening. And I remember it didn't reach at 7 o'clock, it reached somewhere around 9 o'clock. And he called and he said something like, and I feel bad about it, but talking about some of these lessons which he said, I don't know, I have never met more low when it comes to customer service and what you commit and so on and so forth. And we could not explain the challenges and the constraints and this whole army of people who are only trying to work for this part of his this thing. But anyway, the point I wanted to draw was some of these things which happened in the beginning did help us a lot, right? Then we said whatever we are doing, we have to streamline, we have to make the product delivery happen immediately. We have to, so some of those things which went in creating the second phase, if you may, of trying to make things happen. But yeah, that's how it started.
Just to kind of understand your thought process there a bit better, what were some misconceptions that you uncovered in that first phase of your journey? You have two set of customers. One is the actual
Yeah.
retail customers that are availing of the loans, as well as the merchants that are using a service. So maybe for
Yeah.
both of those set of customers, what were some misconceptions that you kind of uncovered?
Yeah, so lots of misconception, I would say. I think the first misconception on the uh, customer side would be customer. Um, we feel at that time, and I think we still hold, a customer is not digitally savvy. I'm amazed every time I meet. There are people who are illiterate, but their comfort and fluency with anything which is digital, which could be digital transactions, or looking at a few things, is at a different level altogether. Many times we create product thinking, oh, we should not be going overboard with trying to encumber them with a lot of digital stuff. But no, I think, and I know one can say the opposite as well. But by and large, for the large populace of people in India, my sense is digital savviness is at a different level, and it does create some level of misconception and other things. Second misconception, not so much of a misconception, but I believe there are many myths which exist in the market. Many
Okay.
myths. And let me lay
Yes.
out two myths to illustrate that.
Hmm?
Um, I have 11 million customers. And when I say 11 million customers, these are customers who have taken my loan. They have either paid back my loan or they are duty bound to pay back the loan. They are not people who have just downloaded the app or they are somewhere, etc., etc. Right? Now, this 11 million customers, they are combination of salaried, self-employed, everything. Their income levels are less than between 20,000 rupee to 1 lakh. So call it a mass market level. Their average CIBIL score is 741. What I understand for many of the prominent banks, the score is same or if not same, it is lower. In fact, I'm not talking about the best bank on the street. The big myth which exists is that just because you are catering to mass market segment, you are actually catering to less credit worthy customers. Wholly mythological,
Brilliant.
flat out, right? So that's one. Second, I'll just add few more. See, there is this traditional hidebound wisdom which exists in Indian banking, right?
Okay.
One of the and then that is that a self-employed customer is a risky customer and a salaried is a good customer. Salaried customers can immediately get a loan if you have a salary listing, etc. In my portfolio, any sliver, any time, any specific pool you take, self-employed is always better than salary. Always.
Really?
That's
Wow.
amazing.
And I've scratched my
That's
head
really good.
thinking why that is the case. It took us some while to understand that. And the only thing
Okay.
I could get to after all this is if somebody is a salaried, they will immediately get a loan from a bank, right? So if they come to somebody like me and wanting to look for convenience,
Ah.
they are, uh, you know, they are mostly maybe the second rung in that sense from a credit standpoint. But the self-employed guys, they are not treated like this from the traditional banks or institutions. I think one of the recurrent ironies of Indian banking system is that if somebody comes for a loan, first of all, see the person with like stare in his eyes with a deep-rooted suspicion that this guy is going to default. Really analyze him from toe to top and really get all the documents and everything, and then say now your loan is approved. Right now, the opportunity for me was there were a large set of people, right, who are either not the mass market salaried people and self-employed. They don't want to be treated like this. They want to be treated in a dignified way. They want an instant
Mhm.
loan, and that
Yeah.
I would say, as much as I'm putting it as a myth, it's a big opportunity for me. I have built a business on the back of only this.
I think you've given us an answer to what's one truth you believe in that others don't. There are three in this. Is amazing. And so what you're saying is that the rule of the banking system has actually become a way for identifying the opposite in terms of credit default and credit score, because a salaried person is either self-selecting himself or herself when they come to you as a low quality, or they are so, I think they know they'll get loans so easily that they're relaxed about defaulting as well, versus someone who is finding it hard to get a loan. That's quite
Yeah,
fascinating. So that means that the cohort, which is actually was supposed to pay well, now has become lax at it
yeah,
potentially.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
And I'm a living evidence. My portfolio is a living evidence of this particular aspect that we just discussed. Yeah.
Walk us through the typical life cycle of a loan that you guys provide. What does the timeline look like? What is the typical life cycle, and who is your target customer?
Yeah. So just to define the target customer for me, as I said, they're basically income level wise between 20,000 to 1 lakh. 80%
Yeah.
of them. There'll be people who will be more than that as well, but that's broadly what I go after.
Okay.
Um, they are both tier one, tier two. So tier one for me is like 60% of the market. Tier two is 40%, but tier one is like the 25th city in tier one is Vizag, is like the top 25 cities I define as tier one. 50% salaried, 50% self-employed or gig workers. Uh, in terms of, I think on two aspects, my customer have biases. One is my customers are far more digital transaction savvy vis-a-vis a normal average Joe in the overall population. And second, I think this also plays out the age of my customers. The median comes to around 28, 29 years, which perhaps tad lower than what you find usually in traditional banks or any other traditional place. That's the customer I cater to. The journey for them is as follows. They can avail our loan either on, they discover us on App Store on their own, or we do digital marketing. But more than that, they discover us at our merchant places. We have created what we call as credit QR code. I don't think we have invented it, but perhaps we have a better claim to invention than anybody else. This credit QR is like put at the store, and a customer can walk in. The shopkeeper may say, okay, fine, if you want to buy through normal UPI and other things, that's fine. But if you want to take credit, you can scan this QR code. They scan it, they are taken to my app. They have to fill a set of things. It takes around 3 to 4 minutes uh, for them to fill. Basically, for me to make a decision, it is 15 seconds because they are all server connected, and data is fetched out, etc., etc. And they are given a limit. That limit could be as high as 20,000 rupee limit, and that begins the start of the relationship. They may be standing at a pharmacy store. Out of 20,000, they may end up using 2,000. The remaining 8,000 is available for them, which they can use it at any of my other merchants, or they can use it at, say, Flipkart, Amazon, like the e-commerce site, or they can just transfer the money in their bank account. With UPI coming in, the whole ease of usage with UPI and transferring into a bank account has also become very, very normal and standard. That becomes the beginning of a relationship. What is the beginning of a relationship then becomes the same customer then takes more loan with us. Once the limit he has exhausted and paid back, he wants fresh limit, he takes it. Beyond limit, they end up taking a long-term personal loan. Long-term personal loan I can give to the extent of around 36 months, or in some cases 48 months, where the ticket sizes can be as high as 2.5, 3 lakhs as well. And yeah, the repeatability is what continues, and they then stay with us. Now, what I'm putting it is in a very simple way, but there are a lot of analysis which go behind, because one of the things at least we take pride in is being able to make our customers loyal.
Yeah.
And and
Interesting.
lending is one product where, again, the traditional wisdom is no, people only decide based on pricing. Absolutely
Yes.
wrong. In fact,
Really.
pricing is the least. Pricing
Wow.
gets only discussed in a confines of a conference room, never in the customer minds. But I think few things I would say: being able to segment the customer, say what customer needs what, from a
What do
loyalty
you mean about
standpoint.
when you say pricing, Ranveer? In this case, is it the interest on the loan? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, exactly. I meant by interest on the loan. So people feel that if there are two loans offered, one is offered at 24%, the other is 22. 22 is what we will share. Of course, in economics, there is this assumption: a rational actor, a customer is a rational actor. Of course, a rational actor will do that. But there are many, many other things which, so ability to get recurring limit. A self-employed guy who has a shop, right? Every time he wants immediate limit, the extent of the limit matters. There are close to around 10-12% of the people, and I've not understood this phenomena, who have a pathological craving for reward points. They will trade anything to get more rewards. Uh, and
pathological craving is the right term.
Yeah, and again,
Pathological.
sorry, don't get me wrong. I'm being very respectful, and
No,
I
no,
say it with all
I know
humility.
this. I know this
Yeah,
beast.
yeah, and they are. But at the same time, it would be unfair for me to put a hammer down their throat and tell them no, take this. So some of these finer things, being able to subsegment customers, identify their need, and offer exactly what they require goes a long way in driving loyalty and stickiness with us. And that's what creates value, at least for us.
Interesting. How do you ensure that your entire team, especially as you scale, is focusing on continuing to build products that are sticky and to kind of keep your customers loyal? Are there specific metrics that you're tracking? How do you
Yeah,
ensure this culture prevails throughout the organization?
yeah, yeah. See, the core of that lies in being able to understand customer better. The core of that, right? If you understand the customer better, you are able to create the right offering. Now, understanding the customer better is a very, very tough thing. It's not easy at all because, as I said, they are of different this thing. The way we tried understanding, and here again, in all humility, I would say we have done a great job, but perhaps not the excellent job, right? It's a journey. It's you can't. There's no possession of truth. It's a pursuit of truth that one is doing. For us, I think there are two things which makes a difference. Number one, a constant dialogue with customer can make you enormously intelligent on what the customer is asking for. So some of the things that we hear on the customer surveys, some of the input we hear whenever there are interactions with the customer, it helps us form our own point of view that this is what they are looking for. I know there's a traditional way of doing focus group discussion, etc. So of course they add to the whole piece of thing, but just having a dialogue with the customer makes a difference. And the second thing is data. Investing in data. I think sometimes I would say if you ask a single customer, there's only so much. Even the customer would be able to articulate their need. And as you know, one customer or few customers can only furnish so much of a pattern, right? When you have 11 million customers odd. So being able to look at data across different subsegments, use I know words like machine learning and AI has got cheapened with overusage. I get that, but some of those techniques being used in saying what is the right propensity they have for different aspects goes a long way in forming the right solution for these customers. And once you have that understanding, then you can actually match the offering, which may be tempting or tantalizing to the customers.
No, I was saying that makes a lot of sense. It's combining data and kind of quantitative insights as well as what you're getting from customers and kind of hearing from them. But talking about that, let's what I would like to understand a bit better is how do you kind of so you operate as two different brands, is that correct? Kissht and Ring. How do these two kind of brands work together, and how do you kind of mentally divide your time between them and think about each of the two arms of
Yeah.
the business?
Yeah. So, first of all, when we started Ring, Kissht already existed. And the whole objective of starting Ring was to broaden our offering, go beyond just a plain vanilla standard garden variety credit product to offer, payments and some of the offerings which I'm talking about, which are more easily to give this. So that was the motive. Plus, also some of the branding experts we spoke to, and they said, Kissht has a very lone connotation as the name sounds, Kissht, etc., etc. And some parts of India, perhaps it is not well understood versus some other places. In fact, the specific incident I remember, somebody said, and I was narrating the same thing to somebody else. I said, in South India, this word is not understood well in Tamil Nadu, perhaps. And this guy who I didn't know was a Tamil scholar immediately took out some Tamil movie from 1962, and shared the snippet where the word Kissht was used. He said, no, people understand Kissht. So anyway, those were point was the Ring was created with a notion of going after more aspiring young people who look for universal set of solution, not only lending. Uh, what has happened over time that today Ring has grown significantly higher. 70% of my business is in Ring, 30% in Kissht. With every passing day, that the pendulum is swinging more towards the Ring side. What we intend to do over a period of time, which is close to around by end of this calendar year, is to merge Kissht to Ring. We'll migrate the customer to Ring. Um, the reason we have continued for this far because we realize that there is a lot of loyalty to the brand and know-how on Kissht, and as much as it sounded logical to just cut one brand and only focus on another, we just thought it would be too much to amputate right now, but all give a good transition period of around 1.5 years before we do that. So that's how the Kissht and Ring coexist. As far as we spending time on these pieces, as I said, it's 30/70. So almost from a mindshare standpoint, also organizationally, we end up spending the same time. And over time, the idea is to transition and get to having everything on Ring.
And I mean, you've been building your company for over 7 years now. Quite a lot has changed, as you've spoken about, even in the startup ecosystem. How do you go about keeping talent, both motivated as well as inspired, especially as the entire, ecosystem's kind of changed around you, and employees now have a lot more options for companies that they can choose to join.
Yeah. So again, very, very critical topic for us because we are as good as our people here, and keeping them motivated is an important thing. It almost looks like when you say keeping them motivated that they're a little bit of they have a automaton or robotics kind of a behavior that I can control them and motivate them whenever I want and whenever I want I don't. None of those exist. I think there are a few things we follow in the organization. Two things which I'll just take out, which are truly goes a long way in making people motivated, if you may. The first one is to create an environment which makes them very, very empowered. I am almost uh, a very, I say it with some level of intensity of conviction that just give a pedestal or a platform to any individual and they perform. They deliver to a different level. I have seen miracles happening. People generally who nobody will count on, if you give them the right stage with the right empowerment, they all perform. I have a general trust on people's capability in that sense, and that's the culture and the organizational this thing that we have built. It also makes many of us senior level to be very detached, give them full ground, give them the ground to do errors, take risk, and come back still rejuvenated, etc., etc. So that's one thing just to keep in mind. Um, I think the second thing is about um, when you are in a setup like this, um, having a meritocracy in the organization is very critical. Uh, Fortunately, unfortunately, it is sometimes not very easy to define, more so when things are changing so rapidly in our sphere, growth numbers happening, all things are broken. But to the extent possible, if one can create a meritocratic organization, I think that acts as a vitamin or an impetus for all the great guys to to be motivated at. So being able to create the right difference between the great performer and give the stage is something that makes a difference.
What scale are you at today, Ranveer? I know you shared a number of customers, but if you can share anything more, whatever is possible, uh, in terms of where you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. So we have book size of around 3,200 crore.
Okay.
At any point in time, my one-fourth of my customers are active.
Hmm.
Um, we are a profitable company. Our PBT, I always is around 300 odd crore. They all would be there soon in this thing. We have close to around, I wanted to correct that when you said in your initial
Okay.
narration, but I realized perhaps it was our fault when we gave this thing. We have 300,000 merchants.
Okay.
Um, we uh, we have partnership with almost 25 banks where we either borrow or we have some kind of an off-book relationship. Um, the idea is to take this number to a significant higher number, the whole book size and the number that we want to take it. But that's a quick snapshot of the numbers or volume where we are in.
Amazing. And what are your plans for 24? I think you mentioned one, which is amalgamating the two brands and entities. But beyond that, what are your priorities for this year?
Yeah. So there are uh, four distinct priorities which are critical. First and foremost, we want to again get to double of our size from a which is what we have been doing for the last 2 3 years. It would be doubly difficult now because the pace has increased, but we still want to do that. While doing it, we want to keep minimal portion in our balance sheet. So our balance sheet may still grow at a very, very nominal rate of 15-20%, but the overall growth with the off book is to the extent of around 100%. It's basically saying that work with a set of partners, high quality, credible partners who can be providers of capital, as against trying to build it on the back of your own book. The third is, as much as we take pride and we applaud every day that we have done a great job on loyalty and stickiness and etc. I think it's just a journey. There's a bigger thing to be achieved, which is particularly on the back of no new products which we are coming up with. Insurance we have been selling in the past. We want to deepen the focus there. We have also started doing secured products, which
Right.
perhaps very different than what we have been doing on the unsecured side. So that's the third bit. I think the fourth one is, as we think about FY25, which is next 12 months, I'm talking about the March to March number.
Sure.
We are also thinking this particular year as one of the next 3 years. So there are some bigger objectives we have for our next 3-4 years. And within that, being able to achieve one third or maybe a large part of it. One of them is to continue to hold a premium position in terms of number of customers and the people who are banking with us. So the 11 million should go to as high as 14-15 million, while at the same time keeping at any point in time a great deal, almost one third to one fourth of the people active with us.
Right.
It's the fourth item, which is rather critical.
Where do you think you will be, or what will you look like in 10 years? If you had to just crystal ball, I know it's very hard, but just maybe a diffuse or slightly hazy version of the future.
I think I'm still young to answer that question. But yeah, if you had asked me maybe a few years later, I would have struggled. But no, on this, on the 10-year thing, uh, the idea is to create a set of products for customers which will solve any and every financial services linked problem.
Understand.
Not easy to do it. We have a very traditional way of looking things, of saying this is a lending, this is payment, this is deposit, this is wealth, and this is long-term protection, which is insurance, etc. But being able to parameterize all of them in a manner where a customer is not dealing with many institutions, is dealing only with one. Being able to give that experience to the customer
Right.
while doing at scale is something which truly I would love to achieve over next 10 years. It's not about, becoming scale player and ruling the market, none of that. Because if you are able to do that, perhaps if the given outcome is you will lose the market. Um, while doing it, there are many, many changes which will happen in the ecosystem between now and next 10 years. There will be evolution of technology, evolution of AI, etc., which is taking things to a different level. Being able to work in that context and being able to offer those services to the customer, people use this phrase democratization of financial
Yeah.
services. I believe it's in true sense, a way to democratize. And more than democratization, I think it will take away the strain from a customer mind to decide which product to buy when, which
Right.
perhaps is quite a strainful thing at this stage. So that's what we, at least I feel, can envision 10 years from now. One can
Awesome.
achieve.
And just to close out why we call this Founders Unfiltered, I think we can go on chatting. There's
Mhm.
so much to learn from you, Ranveer. What is some unfiltered feedback you received in your journey as an entrepreneur that really changed your perspective about building a company and has stayed with you?
Um, again, many things which come to my mind, but let me pick one. Uh, showing courage,
Showing courage.
just showing courage, showing the act of courage, and courage not defined by, I mean, courage defined in a manner where your actions are not driven by your insecurities or fear, but being able to objectively assess the situation and take a call and then act on it, perhaps was one advice or one
Hmm.
unfiltered advice which did made a difference for somebody like me. it also depends upon, sometimes you are in the right setup, you get the right message, and it transfers. So it is there is an element of that too here.
Of course.
But yeah, it has. I mean, I've held that view for a very long period, and I continue to hold that. Whenever we are into some minor crisis or big decisions to be taken, almost detaching myself from the situation and saying, "Oh, are we doing it for reason, or are we doing it for because of some fear or insecurity or some other baggage we are running with, which has to be shared immediately and then take a call."
Right.
I think that's one unfiltered advice which has stayed with me and helped me quite a bit.
Awesome. Ranveer, thank you so much for sharing your unfiltered thoughts. It
Mhm.
was an amazing and very insightful conversation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Really appreciate, and yeah, thanks for having me here.